PuppetCombo is one of the best indie horror devs of the last decade, and has taken the internet by storm with their amazingly terrifying games. From being trapped in a factory with a killer, to being stalked on a night shift or hunted in the forests, or chased by a killer bunny mascot, or even escaping out of a deranged kidnapper's home. And so in this video essay I'll be breaking down and analysing 5 games from across PuppetCombo's giant library, and explaining what makes them so incredible, and how each game improves so much on the last, and even interviewing PuppetCombo about parts of these games. So sit back and get ready for a deep dive into the disturbing world of PuppetCombo games. Starting with one of their earliest games, Power Drill Massacre. Power Drill Massacre is one of PuppetCombo's first games, releasing over 10 years ago as a demo, and as of writing is still yet to release in full. And from just the old demo alone, it is absolutely terrifying. Now this game is shorter than the others I'll be covering, but in it we see core aspects of PuppetCombo's style with mechanics and horror that goes on to be staples of later games. From the instant you begin the game you see the early PS1 VHS style, with its gritty visuals as you see a landscape with radio static playing in the background. Before then, the sound of the car crash as it goes to white, with it then showing a conversation between Megan and Jeff, recovering from the crash with Jeff injured, leaving Megan to go get help, as you then take control of her and begin the game, taking a flashlight from the trunk as you set off into the wilderness to find help. The opening to this game is so eerie yet also atmospheric, with the nature being oddly beautiful, yet the abandoned shacks and satanic imagery fill you with a sense of unease and dread. And hey, what's that big building up there? Anyway, you walk alongside the mountain, getting used to the controls, which I'll talk more about later as you then reach the top of the mountain and see a large building. But the creepiest part about it is that there's what looks like a man standing on the staircase, watching, before suddenly disappearing, leaving you really creeped out as you look around the outside of the building, with there being more creepy shacks and every door into it is locked, except for the ones on the staircase, and so you go back there and enter the building. You see the graffiti of an eye on the wall before then. The door gets locked behind you as you become extremely freaked out. This part of the game nails so well that creepy and unsettling atmosphere, as this is where the rest of the game takes place. But for now you don't know that as you wander aimlessly through the building, your paranoia growing with there being strange metal doors everywhere that say it feels like you're being watched, with every part from the dark and gritty visuals to the noises in the background making it feel deeply disturbing. You still don't know quite what exactly you're meant to do, which adds to the horror as you try to figure out how to get help until then. This is the Driller Killer, the main antagonist of the game, and the more attempts you play through this game, the more you learn just how terrifying he is. You see, he can spawn from any metal door as you wander through this giant sprawling facility, and scare you to death both in-game and in real life. But playing through more, you find a door with 3 locks on it, with the goal of the game being to explore this giant facility, find all 3 keys, and eventually get help, all whilst being chased by this drilling maniac. But the game makes you learn this yourself through trial and error. You're meant to die in this game, and the more you learn about it, the more scary it becomes. Each corner you turn is layered with the fear of knowing he could be around it. You move slowly and carefully as you desperately hope you don't run into him, as if you do there's no hope of surviving. This game absolutely nails its atmosphere, as it's absolutely terrifying with the sound design being subtle and quiet, but just enough to make you uncomfortable, with it contrasting with the loud booming of the Driller Killer chasing you. Never has a game made me feel such a strong sense of powerlessness, as you feel like a dumb animal trying to figure out how everything works, whilst a murderer beyond your intelligence kills you brutally, with you being unable to do anything except run as you get killed over and over again, with this being something replicated in the rest of PuppetCombo's later games for a terrifying effect. Also, you might be wondering why some of my footage looks weird, and that's because my first playthrough was using the VHS filter in the game's settings, something done intentionally by PuppetCombo to give that feeling as though it's a real PS1 era horror game, and makes it far more terrifying as things are harder to see and more distorted. This game also uses fixed camera angles to again reference PS1 era horror games, but it also makes the game feel just like an old slasher movie. When I interviewed PuppetCombo a year ago, they said this about finding ideas for their games. I use stuff I find interesting. Most of my work centers around finding different ways to adapt the slasher genre into games, with this being really clear from how their games play out, and with the Driller Killer likely being a reference to an old slasher film of the same name. Eventually though, you manage to get all 3 keys and you enter the locked door. For just a brief moment you see 3 figures standing in this strange hallway, stretching off far into the distance, until then you see a little girl in the hallway, with you asking her for help, yet she runs off, with you following her as the room begins to tilt to the side more and more, as you get closer to her until you then see red lights up ahead, where then The driller killer emerges as you chase down a red and distorted hallway, with the horrific screams following you as it gets more and more warped and distorted, as it feels like you're in a terrifying nightmare as the colour shifts into a blinding white, with the driller killer getting closer and closer until... Once again, it's a view of a landscape of static radio playing, with the radio then saying the remains of Jeff have been found, yet Megan is still missing, with Megan being who you play as, and Jeff the one from the start of the game, as you realise the terrible fate they both met. As it then ends with the sound of tortured screams, and that is Power Drill Massacre. The thing this game absolutely nails is its atmosphere. Even without knowing the driller killer is with you, the setting is creepy enough as it is, and it gives you a sense of fear and dread unlike any other game, really putting the survival in survival horror, with this game also being brutally difficult because it doesn't save you progress on death, meaning not only are you scared of the driller killer, but you're also scared of losing all of that progress. It's so unsettling how this game leaves the question of what happened to Megan unanswered, with everything about this being so mysterious and creepy. Overall though, whilst the game is quite small, we see in this the beginning of PuppetCombo's distinct and terrifying style, with an atmosphere that later entries would only go on to perfect. Now this game does have a few more secrets to it, but I'll talk about it later on as it relates to another game I'll be covering further in the video, with Power Drill Massacre being of extreme importance to the rest of PuppetCombo's library, with the ripple effects of this game, its story and its design still echoing across their games to this day, including in one of PuppetCombo's next games after this, Night Shift. Now Night Shift is a very weird game as it's not actually its own full game, instead being the prologue to one of PuppetCombo's other games, Stay Out of the House, which I'll talk about later, yet releasing separately from it a whole 4 years before Stay Out of the House's release. Now this game is short but it is extremely terrifying, and in it we see the birth of so many skills PuppetCombo goes on to perfect, and is actually the first PuppetCombo game to get its own film adaptation, which shows just how great of a horror experience this game is. The game begins with you being dropped off at a gas station, as you'll be working the night shift. Immediately there's a really creepy vibe, with everywhere else being dark and empty except the gas station, and that classic style of pixelated PS1 era graphics, with this game also being completely in first person, unlike the fixed camera angles of Power Drill Massacre. Anyway, you enter the store and speak to the current cashier, who tells you to punch in as he needs to go on a date, and informs you that the phones are broken and gives you a long list of chores to do, and most importantly that the bathroom is locked and that the keys are missing, something that will be extremely important later on. So you head into the back room of the store, with it having a really foreboding and creepy feeling as you then punch in and start your shift, as your co-worker leaves, making you completely alone, with the added detail of the phones being broken making that isolation even more terrifying, as if something were to happen to you then no one would be able to save you. You explore more of the gas stations and get used to your surroundings, yet it still feels really ominous, with that back room feeling disconnected from everywhere else, with its claustrophobic spaces cut off from the main store making you paranoid that something may have entered the store while you're back there, with the strange locked door giving a really foreboding feeling about what could be behind it. But the atmosphere is so well crafted to make you unsettled, from the gentle hum of the freezers to the loud roar of the condenser in the fridge, all giving it a deeply liminal feeling. Also in the gas station is an arcade machine of Power Drill Massacre, a strange Atari-style remake of it with a loud and obtrusive hum coming from it. And whilst the game itself isn't all too scary due to the limited visuals, the sound design of it really makes up for it, as it makes you increasingly uncomfortable. After a while of playing and losing the game, a customer enters. He pays for gas and then leaves, where after this you begin doing chores, with this being the main task of the game. Sweep the floors, replace the items, and then clean the bathrooms. So you grab the broom and start sweeping, but as you do you feel really unsettled. At this point you've played for a while yet nothing actually scary has happened, except for the tense atmosphere that builds your paranoia more and more, scrutinising every detail of the store, nervous of where the horror might come from, until then you notice something. A strange van lurking outside in the dead of night. As you sweep more, the van circles the gas station parking lot, with creepy radio music coming from it, as it slowly drives around before leaving down the road. Is it just your paranoia or could there be something more to that van? Its movement's not like a lost driver or someone looking for gas, but more of someone that's watching you. But you still try not to think much of it, attributing the paranoia more to the game's tense atmosphere as you carry on with your jobs. Before then another car pulls in, this time actually entering the gas station, where she asks for some cigarettes before she then leaves as you continue your job. Now being done with sweeping, and so you move on to restocking the items, where you complete it pretty fast, with there now being only one thing left to do: clean the bathroom. With there being something so ominous about it due to the door to them being locked, and how much they've been built up throughout the game, making you fear what might be hiding in them. After trying to find a way in, you go back into the store, where then you You see the van again, doing another loop around the gas station in the opposite direction as the time before. Paranoia grows as you fear what this could mean, watching nervously as the van watches you, like it's scouting out the gas station, with this second loop now reinforcing all of your fear and paranoia, as you dread to think what could happen, completely alone and disconnected at night in this gas station, as it disappears into the night once again. With nothing else left to do, you just wait around trying to kill time, leaving you in that uneasy state of dread, not knowing what could happen, until another customer arrives. He asks you if you're all alone, to which, freaked out, you say that your co-workers are in the back, as you then watch as he wanders the store, as he constantly looks back to stare at you creepily, as you also notice that there's no car parked outside. Could he be the man from the van? Your mind races with fear as you watch him walking around the store, waiting for any sign of malicious intent, with this part really reminding me of parts of the Fears to Fathom games. Before then he grabs a beer and pays for it, leaving the store without saying anything, as you watch as he walks off into the night, scared of what may happen next. After this you stare out of the window, now deeply paranoid, looking for the van to show up again, or see the man reappear, but nothing happens. And so you head into the back room, where you see that the door to the back is now open. Disturbed, you head through, now outside the store, as you see that both bathrooms are now unlocked, with the men's one being left open slightly. Paranoia growing, you enter, but there's nothing at all. You explore outside the store, but there's still nothing. No van, no man, until you re-enter the store, where then... And that is Night Shift. Now this game is absolutely terrifying on the first playthrough, with all of that dread and paranoia culminating in that final jump scare, with the bathroom almost acting like a false jump scare, the whole game building up to that moment of entering the bathroom, only for nothing to happen, making you even more creeped out because you don't know what could happen. And this also perfectly introduces the villain of Stay Out of the House, the Night Shift Abductor, or the Butcher for short, with his cold and calculating cruelty we see here being also something we see throughout Stay Out of the House. Now compared to Power Drill Massacre, I would say that Night Shift is definitely more polished, but with Power Drill Massacre being far more terrifying, due to being in a more scary setting with a more present threat. But that shouldn't downplay just how scary Night Shift is. Everything from the atmosphere to the slow build-up of dread is perfectly crafted to make that payoff extremely terrifying. And while this game is really short, in this we see the skills of creating dread and paranoia develop, something that PuppetCombo only goes on to master in later games, with a game that shows this the best being the next game I'll be covering, Nightwatch. Now I've covered Nightwatch once before, around a year ago, for a video on the Fire Lookout game genre, and is the video I interviewed PuppetCombo for about this game. However, I want to cover it again for this video because I didn't feel I did the game justice, as it was the first ever PuppetCombo game I had played or watched, and my lack of knowledge about their other games made it feel really weird and not well researched, as I couldn't fully understand the game. But now, after playing a lot more PuppetCombo games and doing a lot more research while making this video, I've gained a newfound appreciation for Nightwatch that I hope to do justice with this section. But first, to understand Nightwatch, we actually have to go all the way back to Power Drill Massacre, as these games have a huge connection to each other. You see, in Power Drill Massacre, among the creepy corridors and murderous maniacs, are notes detailing the horrific crimes of the driller killer.
My name is David Ashford. I think I'm going to die here. I'm hiding this note in hopes somebody will uncover it and know the truth. Somebody came to our campsite in the middle of the night and...
The note wasn't finished. There's also a newspaper clipping.
The search continues for 2 missing campers in the Pocono Mountains. Their campsite and belongings have been located, but investigators have few leads. Police say there are no visible signs of struggle, and this continues to be a rescue mission.
Now, the reason I bring up these news articles are not only because it makes Power Drill Massacre more terrifying, as it implies that he's the reason they went missing and may have even covered it up, but also because these notes led to the creation of Nightwatch. From my interview with PuppetCombo last year, he said this:
I think the intent was to create a prequel to Power Drill Massacre to bring some of the newspapers to life from that game. The driller killer was responsible for the disappearances of campers in the area around the sawmill.
And going into this game knowing this context makes it all so much more terrifying. Now, there is one last part to Power Drill Massacre I have yet to mention, but I'll have to cover some of Nightwatch before that. So with that foreboding preamble out of the way, let's dive into arguably one of PuppetCombo's most terrifying games. It opens with a distant view of your watchtower, zooming into it on top of a large hill and getting closer and closer until revealing the title, before you are then introduced to Park Ranger Jim, who you play as in this game.
First night on the job. I have a feeling it's going to be a long one.
You then take control of him and explore your lookout tower. It's quite basic, with a small bed, a desk and some radio equipment and a small computer, which you use to get information about the weather in the surrounding area. You explore the tower more, seeing stairs leading to the downstairs and then also a door to the lookout balcony of a rifle nearby, as you then read a letter from your co-worker. It says how peaceful the nights are there, sure, but also how you need to check for fires every 30 minutes, and making sure to keep the radio on in case any troubled hikers need to contact you, and that after a week another ranger will be taking over. After finding a flashlight, you step out to see more of your surroundings. There's an eerie silence due to the dead of night, and it gives you a foreboding sense of dread. You know that the driller killer is somewhere among the trees, and the very fact that this is a prequel adds an extra layer of fear knowing that your survival isn't guaranteed, as we never see Jim in Power Drill Massacre or any other PuppetCombo game. You then check the surrounding areas for fires using your binoculars, surveying the area where you see a mountain region all too familiar to what was seen in Power Drill Massacre. Yet you don't really see anything of note due to how dark and grainy everything is, except for a plume of smoke off in the distance, making you wonder just who could be camping there. You re-enter the cabin until then. You ask if anyone's there, only to be met with nightmarish growling and heavy breathing until then. You're now increasingly more nervous as your dread only grows from here. You head back out to survey the park until then. The generator cuts out, having run out of gas, and so you, with the dread of knowing that someone's watching you, heads out into the now dark and ominous cabin and goes down the stairs into the dead and cold of night. You descend the stairs, your paranoia growing with the fear that something may be lurking out here. With the fucking camera angles and tank controls making this so hard to do! Now look, from a horror perspective, the fixed camera angles does make it feel like you're watching an old slasher film, and the tank controls do give it that retro feel that these games try to emulate, but from a gameplay perspective, I wouldn't wish navigating these stairs on the driller killer himself, it's that bad. Anyway, you reach the bottom of the tower where you find the generator out of gas, and so you enter a creepy and decrepit looking shed. What could possibly go wrong? You enter and find a computer disc for the game Maze of the Minotaur, alongside the gas canister you need, which you use to refuel the generator as you're finally somewhat safe again, right? Wait, what do you mean there's nearly still 40 minutes left of gameplay? Now remember when I said there was still one more thing in Power Drill Massacre? Well, it's about to become extremely important in this game, so it's about time I explain it properly. You see, Power Drill Massacre actually has a second ending, taking place in the sugar tunnels, a claustrophobic and narrow set of tunnels sprawling in the underbelly of the sawmill, with it being tense and scary knowing how trapped you would be if he started chasing you. And as you go further and further, you can hear a strange honking noise, until you find another part that takes you deeper, going even further down into the tunnels, overtaken by green sewage water until you then find a corridor free from the water, and enter seeing a strange room with a dead body on the bed.
Something horrible happened on this bed. I think somebody still sleeps here.
With the bloodied handprints making it even more disturbing before then. The driller killer appears and begins chasing you as you run around the room desperate to survive as you see it filled with cages and blood, as you realise this is where he must live, and also where you'll die. You awaken now in one of the cages with most of your clothes gone, as the driller killer appears staring at you before moving around the room frantically, as you hear the protagonist crying in the cage with it being so harrowingly disturbing, as a soft music box begins to play before then. A Bible verse then appears on screen, and that is Power Drill Massacre's second ending. What makes this ending so terrifying is it gives you a glimpse into the twisted mind of the serial killer, something we also see in PuppetCombo's later works, but the fact he sleeps in a bed with a dead body and lives right next to where he holds his victims captive is so disturbing and makes earlier interactions with him far more terrifying. But how does this connect to Nightwatch? Well, you'll just have to see. You look back out surveying the land for fire, yet there's nothing, except still the smoke of the distant campfire, as you then enter the disc into the computer and play Maze of the Minotaur. But don't expect anything fancy, since it's just a text-based adventure game, where upon waking up on a stone altar you begin navigating your way through a series of dim hallways and strange passages, as you try to survive in this cruel labyrinth. Wait, am I doing a video essay on a game inside a game? Oh god, am I in a game? What isn't a game? Help me. Now this part has always stuck out as odd to me since the very first time I played it, with it not really having much significance to the themes or horror of the game, which is why in my interview with PuppetCombo I asked about what the meaning behind it was.
The Minotaur maze was what inspired the driller killer concept used in my game Minotaur.
With Minotaur being one of PuppetCombo's first games and eventually evolved into Power Drill Massacre, and so again having that connection between Nightwatch and Power Drill through this game makes it even creepier, and I'm assuming the Minotaur maze is referring to the real thing in Greek mythology, with PuppetCombo taking a more modern horror spin on it, where instead of being trapped with a supernatural monster, you're trapped with a human one. Now there is more to analyse with this game, but honestly I don't know how much longer I can make text-based gameplay look entertaining. Anyway, after navigating your way through the maze, it says a horrible grinding sound revs up behind you as you start to run before then. Someone's at the door. You approach nervously, descending the stairs as you then check out what's out there. But no one's there, with this being even more scary than if someone was there, as it creates that fear of the unknown of who or what could have knocked. So you then leave your tower and go down to the storage shack, but as you try to leave it... Oh, it was just a nightmare. So was all of that for nothing? Well, not really, as everything's pretty much the same as in the dream. Suddenly an alarm begins sounding from the computer, so you check it where it warns about an incoming flood, and says to get to higher ground. Well, no need to worry about that. Hey, wait, where did the rifle go? You survey the landscape from your towers to see what looks like a dying light, seemingly where the campfire smoke used to be. You then re-enter the cabin and are contacted by a group of campers, where Jim speaks to them, as they say they might be being paranoid, but...
I think there's somebody watching us in the woods by our campsite.
He then gives his location and Jim says he'll be right over.
There's 3 of us. We keep hearing things in the woods. I think somebody's there.
Jim questions further and says that they heard a voice that sounded like somebody mimicking a pig. And in this moment of sheer terror, you realise that the campers are the same ones in the newspaper clips and Power Drill Massacre, and they are being stalked by the driller killer. You then leave your tower and set off into the rainy night to try to help the campers. As you descend your watchtower, god damn it, these fucking stairs again! After flawlessly going down the stairs, you reach the bottom and wander off into the complete unknown. An eerie tension grows as you go further into the wilderness, with the big open and barren fields giving you a huge sense of dread. As you search aimlessly through the rain and fog and low poly yet also beautiful foliage. As the terrain gets rougher, you get a strange feeling as though you're being watched. With the context from Power Drill, you know shit goes down here. And these are the campers from the newspaper clippings, and going towards them feels like you're walking towards your execution. With everything you've seen in the game so far, like the knock and the power outage, only justifying this paranoia. You know that something will happen, but not when or what that something is. As you go further and further into the park, there's a sense of smallness, as the trees and mountains around you make you look small and weak, as you then reach a small opening containing a lone picnic basket in front of an empty and derelict shack. You enter and see a worn down and vandalised place with a toy flute left by a child. Until then you see graffiti of a satanic emblem of a goat skull before then. Did you miss that? Well, if you did, you're probably watching this in the background. Because for a brief moment you can see a man crouch past the window, as a noise plays sounding like someone mimicking a pig. Oh god, are you being stalked now too? And as you leave, the sound of a power drill plays, as you are filled with panic and dread as you feel absolutely terrified knowing that you're being hunted as well. And from what you know from Power Drill Massacre, it's only a matter of time till he gets you. Also, if you've enjoyed this video so far, why not subscribe since it helps me out so much and makes huge projects like these worth it. And if you like these games, you're bound to like my other stuff too. Anyway, enjoy the rest. You carry on deeper into the foliage, now getting closer and closer to the campsite of the hikers, as you get the sense something big is about to happen as you approach a lone backpack left behind in the forest. Who left this here? Paranoia builds as you enter a clearing in the forest, with the rain now stopping with you being extremely close to the campsite, with there being increasing VHS static like the game itself is warning you to stop proceeding. As you then reach the campsite, it's empty with no sign of anyone there, so you check the first tent, static increasing as you look inside. But there's nothing, so you check the second tent. And there's still nothing, and so you check the third tent. The tent is splattered with blood as you filled with absolute terror. The notes were true. This is the night of the disappearances. But if Jim witnessed this, then why wouldn't he say anything about it in the present day? Well, you then hear the sound of a young child screaming for help. And so you follow the sounds deeper into the depths of the clearing, seeing a stray teddy bear as you investigate further, and then... creepy music begins to play as you see the fence of a cage, with familiar wallpaper in the background as you see the frantic movements of the driller killer, now recognizing this place to be the driller killer's room from Power Drill Massacre, the same place where Megan died, as it shows you Jim, tied up and beat and bloody, with his uniform gone, as there's piles of rotting and mutilated bodies, as the driller killer lurks the doorframe watching Jim, your dread and panic building as it goes to first person, where you see him in the doorframe. Jim tries to plead with him, but then... it flashes the same Bible verse as in Power Drill Massacre, as the VHS flickers out as the credits roll with tortured screams and static playing showing the same mountain range as in Power Drill Massacre. And that is Night Watch. What makes this game so incredible and so terrifying is how it relies off that pre-existing knowledge from Power Drill and turns it into a gut-wrenching paranoia-filled masterclass of horror and dread, with there being a slow build-up of things to unsettle you, yet could be played off as nothing serious. The heavy breathing on the radio, the power going out, the knock on the door, and even the nightmare, all making you unnerved and building that paranoia in you. Yet there's no real threat that's being posed to you, allowing you to debate with yourself whether it was anything to be worried about, which is what makes the radio call of the hikers and seeing the driller killer in the window so terrifying, as it gives you something to be scared of. And even without the context from Power Drill, this game is still extremely terrifying, with the foreboding and dreadful atmosphere really making me uncomfortable and fearful. I feel like both Power Drill Massacre and Nightwatch strongly complement each other, as one gives the context making moments in Nightwatch more terrifying, whilst the other gives insight into the mind of the driller killer, and how long he's lived his twisted life, making Power Drill Massacre even more terrifying as Megan is just one victim of so many. And PuppetCombo is one of the few horror devs that really love to explore the psyche and depravity of serial killers. We see this somewhat in Power Drill Massacre and Nightwatch, however I feel no game shows this better than the next game I'll be covering, Murder House. Murder House is PuppetCombo's first game to release on Steam. If you thought Power Drill Massacre was terrifying, this game cranks it up a notch by improving in the gameplay, horror, story and overall polish. As you can tell why this game was released on Steam, as it's one of the most polished and well-rounded horror experience PuppetCombo has produced, with this game releasing about 5 years after Power Drill in the great year of 2020. It's personally my favourite PuppetCombo game. Everything about it, from the atmosphere to the horror to the villain, is all so well crafted, and you can immediately tell the jump in quality from the game's title screen, or again there's various options on how you want the graphics to look, to really nail in that analog horror style, with this being even more evident as you enter the game's prologue, with this intro feeling like an 80s horror movie opening with a VHS loading bar and the text as you then enter the game, where a photographer guides you to walk towards a creepy looking bunny mascot, so you sit in his lap and the photo gets taken. And this is the last moment of safety you'll get in this game. It cuts to you waking up in a photo booth, then showing you walking out of it into a giant empty mall, where he plays this kid, Justin, who's trying to find his mom or at least a way out of this closed mall. It's extremely empty and eerie as you wander through this unnerving place, with it feeling like you're in one of those liminal space photos, with the mall being so generic as to feel nostalgic and familiar, but so empty and dark to feel uncomfortable and scary, with the music reflecting this, with it being a liminal yet calming sound, but with distortions to make it deeply uncomfortable. Eventually you find a gate which you crawl under and enter a new part of the mall. It's really creepy seeing this vast empty space with lots of it being obscured by darkness. As you then reach the place where you took the photo of the Easter Bunny, you slowly approach it but still no one's there. Before then, the music cuts out as you interact with his chair, but then just out of the corner of your eye, you can just barely make out what looks like the head of the Easter Bunny, watching you. From here the music is replaced with a droning siren, almost screaming sound, as you explore the mall looking for a way out, with all the doors being locked and you seeing a poster for missing children, adding to your paranoia as you feel as though you're being watched and could be the next victim. Eventually though you see an exit door, and so you enter. It's a white and long stretching corridor, with more missing posters as you then see a door that takes you to the bathroom, where it gives you the option to hide in the stalls. This won't be relevant later, right? Anyway, you leave and continue down the corridor until suddenly the Easter Ripper appears and begins to chase you down the corridor, with the use of the 3 cameras really making you feel the tension, as he frantically tries to evade him as you quickly run and hide in the bathroom stalls. He enters and locks the door, the siren sound making it all the more disturbing as you watch as he roams the bathroom, searching each stall, fearful that he could find you, before then he turns the corner and disappears. With the door locked, your only option is to go the exact same way he went. So you nervously go through the door, entering another hallway. A weary silence echoes throughout, as it's terrifying knowing that the bunny could be lurking anywhere hunting for you. You then enter a creepy looking storage room with a loud droning sound piercing your ears, as you wander through it inspecting a shelf before then and that is the intro to Murder House. Now there is actually more to this, but I died early on and didn't realise there was more, but it's mainly just a Jacksepticeye cameo and still ending with you being killed by the Easter Ripper. What makes this opening so effective is how it slowly builds tension, starting with a creepy introduction to the Easter Ripper with the photo, before then throwing you into a liminal and creepy mall, with there being something so hauntingly beautiful about this environment. Yet there's an underlying creepiness and tension to it, as you're unsure on when or where the horror will come from, until you see the head of the Easter Ripper, with the grainy visuals obscuring it just enough to make you question what you saw and letting your mind race with fear, with everything after this now giving you an immense feeling of dread knowing you're not alone. This is also an amazing introduction to the game's villain, the Easter Ripper, as you see his brutal and violent nature and how he psychotically pursues you throughout. The fact you play as a child also makes it more terrifying as you're not very strong or intelligent, instead being small and lost in this giant empty place, with the missing posters adding to that feeling of dread, as you feel like you could be next due to playing as a kid and builds even more fear around the Easter Ripper. PuppetCombo's work is deeply inspired by the slasher film genre, and the game being structured like this is a perfect example of this, as this prologue is the exact same as what you'd expect in the opening scene of a slasher film, establishing the villain by showing the victim getting attacked. But this film has only just begun, and there's way more to talk about from here, as after this it cuts to the present day of 1988, as we see the silhouette of a house. Could it be the murder house? You see a van driving through the woods obscured by fog, as they then arrive at the house and begin to speak, where you then learn there are a film crew here to make a story on the house, and meant to be meeting the real estate agent, yet he's nowhere to be found, except for his car, which is empty. You then get introduced to the intern, Emma, as she gets tasked with finding a way into the house, and this is also who you play as for the rest of the game. The atmosphere here is incredibly creepy, as you try to enter the house but the door is locked, with the fog and grainy filter making it feel really unsettling. You go to the back of the house, seeing a creepy greenhouse as you then enter through the basement window. You enter this unsettling basement, paranoia growing as you wonder what could be hiding down here, with there being fog that limits your vision into other rooms, making you unable to see what could be lurking around you. You explore more and see another part of the basement in total darkness. No thank you, I would like to live actually. But the most unsettling part about the basement is this, interacting with the wardrobe and seeing the text about it being a good hiding spot, letting you know that at some point you'll be hunted and be hiding for your life. And there's a deep feeling of dread created by knowing this. Anyway, you leave the basement and enter the kitchen, unlocking the back door and inspecting the greenhouse more, seeing how dilapidated an area it is, and then re-entering to see more of the house looking dark, grungy and dirty, as you unlock the front door and letting the rest of the crew. But there's still no sign of the real estate agent, as you wonder what might have happened to him. You're then tasked with the arduous job of moving the equipment into the house, with the music here really adding to this game's atmosphere, due to how perfectly it balances tranquility and fear. You also speak to more of the crew to get to know them better.
Wow, this is a cool house.
I hate every second of this.
Eventually though, you finish bringing the equipment in, but with no power, none of it can be used.
Power
And so
down.
as the intern, you're tasked with
We'll
trying to
turn
turn
it
it back
back
on.
on.
So you wander the house alone, descending into the basement once again to find the fuse box. But it needs a fuse to use it, and so you go to the second floor, which somehow proves to be even creepier, as that isolation from the rest of the group makes you nervous of what could happen. However, you then find the fuse and put it in the fuse box, returning the power before then. The washing machine activates with a strange banging sound, wondering what could be hiding behind its jammed door. But with the power back on, you can finally begin filming.
Alright, good. Everything set, Tom?
They begin to record, in which you also learn more about the personalities of each of the characters. Gary, the vain and demanding producer, Dana, the reporter who
I was
just wants to be
thinking we
listened
could-
to and get a big break, and Tom, who's just there doing what he can. Anyway, in the news report you learn more about the Easter Ripper,
Anthony Smith, more commonly known as the Easter Ripper,
where you then learn that this is the home of the Easter Ripper, and also where
where 11 innocent children spent their final moments in agonizing pain and terror.
and that.
Some say his spirit still haunts the home till this day.
This makes the rest of the game incredibly creepy, as you realise exactly what's going on, and makes you dread to think if he could be lurking in this house. Anyway, after an argument they take a break from filming, where again more liminal music begins to play, as you wander the house again going upstairs until then. What the hell was that? Emma asked Tom if he saw this too, where she describes it as a premonition where everyone was dead. I'm sure this isn't foreshadowing anything whatsoever. You also go to the very top floor of the house, seeing a locked metal door. I wonder what's behind it. In fact, a great part of the design of this game is how there's so many areas you can't go to. The dark parts of the basement, the greenhouse and all the locked rooms throughout the house, all building up that mystery and fear, as you wonder when you'll be able to go there and what horrors hide within them. After giving Dana a glass of water, she gives you a key, with the rest of the film crew then coming down to film more of the story, with Gary wanting to make it more thrilling, and makes Emma dress up as a ghost and tasked to run through the background during filming.
2 years later, many say he still haunts the home he grew up in.
But despite the comedy, there's also a lot of genuine horror in this part, as you learn about how the Easter Ripper used to work at a mall as an Easter bunny, where he would abduct young children, exactly what we see at the start of the game. But she then says how he would release the children in his greenhouse, forcing them to go on a deadly Easter egg hunt,
while he stalked and murdered them.
All of this makes the house somehow even more terrifying to be in. Anyway, after this, they take another break and will resume filming in the bedroom. Tom goes to the bathroom whilst Emma is tasked to pick up pizzas for the crew. But before this, you use the key Dana gave you to open the door under the stairs, taking you to a small room where you have the ability to save your game. Now, the save mechanic in this game is really unique to modern games, as instead of allowing you to save when or wherever you want, you can only do it in this room, and can only save a limited number of times by using the pencil, with there only being a limited number of pencils scattered around the house, making it so you have to use your save strategically to ensure you don't lose too much progress upon dying, while still having enough pencils so you can save in the future. But why would you even need to save? It's not like anything's here to kill you, right? After this, you speak with Dana, where you learn that there may be other secrets in the house that the rest of the crew are blind to.
I think there's something hidden here that nobody knows about.
And with the flashlight you get from the cupboard, you can now explore the dark part of the basement. It's extremely nerve-wracking as using just a flashlight obscures your vision, and you feel dread knowing that there could be something lurking here just out of sight. However, all you find is a crowbar which you use to finally open the washing machine where you get a doorknob. Upon going back upstairs, it's now dusk, with a dim orange light filling the house. You get the feeling that something has changed, and that this piece is about to end as you enter the room with the missing doorknob. The room isn't anything special, with a grand fireplace and a fire poker which you can take as a weapon, and a grand piano covered in boxes, yet the whole room just feels empty and strange. You then leave the house to go get pizza for the rest of the crew, now being almost nighttime with a growing unease as you then get to the car. It's broken. You then read the note on the windshield.
Nowhere to go now. Looks like we'll be playing a game. You'll be hunting the eggs, I'll be hunting you. Find them all and you can leave. Don't find them and you can't.
A loud droning sound begins to play, as you now feel an insane amount of dread and terror, as you re-enter the house not knowing what to expect. You go to the filming room and explain what happened, with everyone there except Tom, and Gary blaming it on the real estate agent, and so with Tom gone you have to hold the camera. You begin filming with Dana still upset, and so you take another break and go find Tom, scared of the fate that he may have met, descending all the way to the basement to find him there, scared like everyone else, and he gives you a key whilst he goes to find another way out. You return back upstairs and it's now fully nighttime, your flashlight guiding you as you wander through this decrepit house. Yet it's empty with no sign of the rest of the crew, and so you begin to head upstairs where then...
Help me! There's somebody else in here! No!
The Easter Ripper begins chasing you as you head to the top floor, putting the key in the lock and managing to get to safety, or at least only for a short while. The horror has now officially started. You are in grave danger, going from hunting for a juicy story to now being hunted by what you were looking for, as you are now filled with immense dread knowing that you have to leave that room at some point. All that dread the game has been building up is now finally paid off. From the creepy basement to slowly unlocking more areas of the house, then how the story of the Easter Ripper is drip-fed to you to build up that tension and dread, making you scared of when he might show up, and also the repeated text of, "This would make a good hiding place," making you aware that something will happen, and that when it does you better be ready, with the jump scare of the Easter Ripper being so startling and the goriness of Dana's death feeling so different from everything you've seen so far, making this moment harrowing and shocking, and this makes this moment a perfect payoff of all of that build up in dread and tension. I also love how this game uses camera angles to make it look like an old 80s slasher film, with the fixed cameras making it feel like you're being watched, or like you're watching a movie, with slasher movies being a great source of influence for PuppetCombo's games, as they said in my interview with them last year. Anyway, in this room you find a letter opener, as you then nervously leave the room to find out where to use it. There's such a visceral fear that comes from this part of the game knowing that you're now alone, and that this terrifying killer could be lurking anywhere. You make it to where Dana died, the blood and gore making it uncomfortable as you see an Easter egg that's been shoved in her mouth, a death egg, as you remember the Ripper's letter about this being an egg hunt. It's a small house in the grand scheme of things, making you even more scared knowing that there's only so many places you could be, and you're bound to run into him eventually. And if you do see him, you better hope he doesn't see you. With there being such a powerlessness in this moment, with you now being able to use hiding spots, adding to the fear and showing that shift from hunter to hunted, and gives the same feeling as in Power Drill, where you feel so powerless to do anything as even trying to fight is futile. Every time you step out into the open hallway you feel tense and worried he'll find you. You could run, but it would alert him, but walking slowly makes you vulnerable. But even if you go into a room, there's still a risk he could find you, keeping you constantly on edge. Anyway, after some close encounters with the Easter Ripper, you eventually make your way to the basement, as you use the letter opener on the locked drawer to get a magnet, which you can then use on a hole in the floor to retrieve a key, gaining you access to another room upstairs. You enter where then...
Dana is dead! Help me find an exit! No!
Another victim of the Easter Ripper. With this jump scare being really startling, you are now fully alone in the house with almost no one left to save you. But hidden in the bed is a blacklight, where you then head back upstairs and screw in the blacklight in the attic, revealing a bloodstain coming from underneath a bookshelf. And so you move it and see an elevator which takes you into the single most disturbing and horrifying part of this game. You get off the lift and see two long corridors, one of which having paintings of rabbits on and leading to a door into the basement, and the other corridor having torture equipment on the wall which looks well used. Already there's an immense feeling of dread created, carrying on into you entering the first of 3 rooms adjacent to the corridor. You enter and see 2 skeletons near a bloodied mattress, decayed and abandoned, with this making you extremely disturbed, as you read a note containing a piano arrangement of a song with each number corresponding to the number of semitones and to the chromatic scale it is. Wow, are they so fancy as a word like that? Please subscribe, guys. The rest of the room is run down and rancid, with this giving you such an immense and distressing feeling. This game doesn't spell out exactly how the kids were treated down here and what happened to them in the final days, but through context clues like the rack of torture equipment, the large pools of blood and their rotting skeletons, it leaves the horror up to your mind to imagine what might have happened to them. Something far scarier than if the game just showed it to you outright, as this implied horror is far more terrifying than anything this game could possibly show you. You then enter another room, seeing another skeleton, this time chained to the bed by their legs with the text saying, "Horrible things must have happened here," as it sends shivers down your spine, as there's then another skeleton, left tied up. You take the rope from it to use later, with it being another bunny mural and a really gross makeshift toilet. You then enter the last of the 3 rooms, this time showing a curled up skeleton saying, "This child seems to have died from the cold," and then a toddler skeleton in a crib, making you shocked at the unrestricted cruelty of the Easter Ripper, with the floor having large pools of blood, as you then read a note saying how the Easter Ripper gave one of the kids a chocolate egg with razor blades in, causing their mouth to bleed and him to laugh. This note is just so disturbing to read, and makes you terrified of how deranged and depraved the Easter Ripper is, as you fear for what he could do to you if he catches you. This part of the game really freaked me out whilst playing it, and is so effective in how it gives subtle suggestions of disturbing things that might have happened, but never directly showing you the cruelty, and instead letting you piece together this horrific slaughter of innocent children, with this most likely being the fate of the character you played as in the prologue. You then exit into the rest of the basement and head back into the house, now with a newfound increased fear of the Easter Ripper, knowing just what he's capable of. You enter the kitchen and see Tom's camera on the floor. Scared, you take the tape from it so you can see his last moments, as you worry if he's even still alive. The atmosphere is tense and foreboding as you ascend through the house, where then... things get increasingly more sinister as though you're getting closer to a horrifying truth, with this strange hallucination only making you even more freaked out. You then enter the tape into the TV found in one of the rooms, watching as you see Tom filming the fireplace room before then. The Easter Ripper attacks him, before then opening the piano, doing something to it and then leaving. Could this be what the piano arrangement earlier was for? But scarier yet is the fact that you are now the sole survivor, completely alone with everyone else dead and with yours fast approaching. After this, you use the rope from earlier to pull down the wardrobe, revealing a hidden entrance into the bathroom. You enter and it's really run down and eerie, with mouldy walls and chipped paint as you search through the cabinets, finding bandages which you can use to heal yourself. Before then, you see something behind the shower curtain. You open them to reveal the real estate agent, lying there bloodied with an egg stuffed in his mouth. The second egg in this sinister and murderous egg hunt, with these eggs also having tarot card symbols on them, giving it a creepy and spiritual feeling. Anyway, after this you leave the bathroom into another room, where you use the letter opener to obtain a pistol, now feeling more secure in the fight against the Easter Ripper, but still not wanting to risk a deadly fight with him. After seeing the video, you go to investigate the piano to see what the Easter Ripper could have left there. And if you remember all the way back to the basement, one of the kids wrote down how to play the song. And so you either write it down or just Google it and then play it on the piano. The piano then opens, revealing another egg, the fool egg. And in this room there's also a lone egg basket where you then place all 3 of the eggs in, but nothing happens. How many more eggs could there be? With the eggs being a great source of horror in this game as it subverts the fun and innocent of an egg hunt by placing them next to gruesome murders, although Tom's body is still completely missing. Desperate to end this nightmare, you look around the house to find the final egg as you enter the bedroom.
Gary, what the fuck are you doing?
You see Gary bloodied and dangling from a long chain with it looking so disturbing, as you then get the final egg from his bloodied hands, the hanged egg. You then head back downstairs and place the final egg, but nothing happens. You explore the house, anxiety building as you dread to think what nightmare this may have awakened, until you go back to the secret basement, and see the large metal door now left just slightly open, and so you enter. You enter a long and distorted winding tunnel, with a creepy melody playing in the background as you feel immense dread not knowing where it's taking you. You then reach a ladder at the end and climb it, entering the Easter Ripper's greenhouse, the very greenhouse where all of the horrific murders took place. You try to leave through the doors but it's locked, so you go to the other set of doors where then... the Easter Ripper appears and is revealed to be Tom.
Well, I did. I killed them all.
Before he then reveals that it was his brother who took the blame for the murders to save him.
I thought I could control the urge to kill, but it's back. And now, I'm going to kill you!
You are now trapped in here with the Easter Ripper, and with no option but to fight desperately to save your life. Using the gun you shoot him, but it has a small effect, as you desperately try to kill him until then... Now this fight is extremely difficult, but also extremely terrifying as you feel that intense fear scrambling to survive, with the tank controls making this fight even more difficult, as it's a control scheme you're probably not used to, and the chaos of trying to shoot him whilst not getting hit, it becomes even harder to control. So much in fact I actually had to switch to first person after so many attempts, to finally deliver the killing blow to the Easter Ripper. He just lies there, and so you explore the greenhouse more and find a shotgun. You take it and approach him again, but he's gone, until...
You can't kill me. I'm the Easter Ripper!
Before then a loud rumbling sound is heard as you see things start to emerge from the dirt of the plants, seeing the kid you played as at the start of the game come up from the ground, alongside others in a ghostly and scary form. They then all close in on the Easter Ripper, tearing him apart as he screams, finally being punished for his years of murder, as Emma then escapes the greenhouse. And that is Murder House. To say this game is incredible would be an understatement. The way in which it slowly builds horror from the very beginning, with the prologue setting terrifying expectations, only to have that gradual rise in tension throughout the house as more and more creepy things occur in the constant presence of hiding places, up until suddenly everything shifts as it feels like everything's being turned upside down, with it now being dark and uninviting, with the build-up of this horror culminating in an amazingly terrifying reveal of the Easter Ripper. The game is comfortable of letting you sit in that unease of not knowing where the horror will start or where it will come from, and once it does start as you become hunted by the Easter Ripper, it turns increasingly terrifying, tapping into some primal and deep-rooted fear inside our brains of that powerlessness, with it feeling extremely similar to the powerlessness in Power Drill, with that fear of knowing each step through the house could be the step that leads to your death. All of it makes for an incredible experience, and compared to the previous games it is a night and day difference, mastering the fixed camera angles used in Power Drill Massacre and Night Watch, with a storyline so gripping and captivating, and the visual style of the game is also extremely distinct, feeling like you're watching an 80s slasher film, with its grainy VHS aesthetics and PS1 era graphics giving that impression of you travelling back in time to an era now gone. And the fact that most of the house has a grey and muted colour palette really emphasises the house's creepiness, and makes it feel abandoned and uncomfortable and not at all home-like. But the story is also amazingly captivating, and feeling ripped straight from a slasher film, using stuff like prologues and having that slow build-up of exposition to build up that fear and mystery through the news recordings, where you learn more and more of the extent of the Easter Ripper's depravity. The foreshadowing of Tom is also insane to look back on, how his body is the only one we don't see, how he says he's going to the bathroom when it's actually locked, and that's also where we find the real estate agent, and then how it's only after Tom leaves where the Easter Ripper first appears. Now maybe I was just really oblivious to it when I first played it, and if so then we know how well I do in a horror movie. But the subtle foreshadowing just goes to show how well crafted the story of this game is, having a consistent plot from start to finish with each detail making sense in retrospect. Although the ending seems oddly familiar, a man who dresses in a bunny suit to murder children is cornered in an enclosed space, only to meet his downfall by the ghostly reflections of those he murdered. Where have I heard this before? Now the gameplay is also really amazing, with the saves being limited and homage to early PS1 horror games, and just like those games, Murder House doesn't hold back on its difficulty. A good example of this is the final fight, but also the puzzles throughout the game are really cryptic. It may have seemed simple when I covered it, but trust me, there was a lot of times I had to look up what I was supposed to do. But I think that's also a strength for the horror of this game, as not only do you have to try and survive, but also amidst that fear and chaos you have to try to think rationally with the information you have to try to progress and escape. Overall though, Murder House has to be one of my favourite horror games, and my personal favourite PuppetCombo game, as not only is it incredible how this game was put together in just 6 months, but also how it's the culmination of every skill PuppetCombo has been building over years and years, improving with every game and learning new things making each one. The fixed camera angles and terror of Power Drill Massacre, the tense atmosphere of Night Shift, and the captivating unravelling mystery of Night Watch, all culminating into an incredible and complete horror experience. Acting is a testament to the passion and craftsmanship that goes into making these games. Now whilst this is my favourite PuppetCombo game, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the scariest PuppetCombo game I've played, because that title would absolutely have to go to Stay Out of the House, which just so happens to be the last game I'm covering in this video. Stay Out of the House has always terrified me. Honestly, I've been so scared of it I really didn't want to play it and cover it in this video, but I think the very fact it made me feel that way without even playing it just shows how uniquely petrifying this game is. From the very premise alone, it's already deeply disturbing.
Stay Out of the House is a realistic serial killer escape sim. You've been kidnapped and held captive in a cannibal butcher's house, and it's only a matter of time until your dinner. Escape however you can.
Which is a concept that's so deeply unsettling. The idea of being so powerless whilst this monster is circling in to kill you, then the added fear that comes from the fact he's a cannibal making you dread what fate may lie for you, all of it making for something that really sends shivers down your spine, and it's just a terrifying concept that made me scared to play the game, which as a person who likes to talk about horror games a lot, is really a first for me. This game is just an incredible experience from start to finish with the best gameplay and horror out of any PuppetCombo game, with it being PuppetCombo's third game to release on Steam, showing just how much of a high quality package this game is, taking over 4 years of development. Anyway, let's get into the actual game and explain what makes it so goddamn terrifying. Now, Night Shift is technically the first part of Stay Out of the House, which I covered separately earlier on in the video, both due to how separate it is from the rest of the game, but also since it was released separately with most people seeing it as a standalone entry, with the game properly starting in the prologue. It begins with you asleep in a car listening to a religious preacher preaching about Christianity, until you open your eyes seeing that you're driving down a lonely country road with your boyfriend Brendan. He says he'll stop soon for a bathroom break, and that you should go back to sleep. And so you do, with the religious preaching still in the background. You wake up in the car outside the bathrooms with Brendan missing, and so you step out to investigate, looking through the Groton with the bathroom with Brendan being nowhere to be found. So you exit through the back, and see a door left slightly ajar leading out into a field, where on the floor you find the ID card of Brendan, as you fear what might have happened to him, as you continue down a strange path surrounded by thick walls of foliage, almost like a cool maze as you see large and imposing farm towers above you. You walk nervously for a long time, with this having a really uncomfortable feeling to it as you find more lost items of people, filling you with worry of what could have happened to Brendan, with the memory of Night Shift still lingering with you as you enter a large and empty farmyard. After exploring some more, you find a stray dog, and yes, you can pet it, don't worry. You see more items like lost teddy bears and glasses, again building up that paranoia, something which PuppetCombo has mastered at this point, with this being one of his most recent games to release. The dog follows you as you explore this empty and liminal farmland, with it being so eerie and foreboding, waiting for something to break the unnerving atmosphere, as you see a tight and claustrophobic corn maze, which of course you have to enter and navigate through. It's a horror game, what else would you expect? You wander deeper into the maze with a growing nervousness, not knowing what could be around each corner, with the dog still following you before then the dog begins leading you towards something in the maze. So you follow it where it leads you to the centre, in which you see an abandoned van with an ID left in it, and a leaflet promoting a church and giving more information on it, with all the religious references so far being oddly unsettling. You look around more and see scattered items like clothes and fishing poles as though someone had left here quickly, or worse, been taken by force. Eventually though, you head back into the maze, where you see an exit leading you into the back of an empty worn down church, with there being nothing there except a lone altar, with a note on it talking about new beliefs that swept through their community, ostracizing those who don't fit in with the new beliefs, and instead of following the Bible they're following some nonsensical gibberish, with this pastor still believing in the old ways being threatened, attacked and had attempts of arson on his church, and even being shot at, and so fearing for his life he flees town for somewhere better, leaving this church now empty and abandoned. You get a really ominous and foreboding feeling as you head back through the maze, looking for another way out, with the empty atmosphere really being one to build up that dread, as you then exit the maze and see a large and imposing house. Its red-tinted windows giving an unsettling feeling, with it being the first sign of human life you've seen since the car ride, although you wonder if this is the relief you're looking for, or something much, much worse. You walk past all of the lovely looking flamingos and mounds of rubble as you see the front of the house, as the dog runs up to it growling as you see the door left wide open, before then... And so nervously, you follow it in. You hear the yelps of the dog as you wander through the house, having a decrepit and rundown feel to it, like the house is just as abandoned as everywhere else you've been, but some details being so oddly unsettling, like you're not meant to be here, as it doesn't look welcoming. You follow the dog's yelp and end up in the basement where you see it stuck in a bear trap, and so you help it out as it runs upstairs barking. You follow it until then... You're attacked by the butcher, and awake trapped in a cage inside this nightmarish house, and on the TV is a recording of religious preachings unable to be turned off, with there being something wrong with your stomach now. What makes this prologue to the game so terrifying is how it uses loneliness as a tool for horror. Even at the start of the game when you're with Brendan, it still feels isolated due to the empty country roads, with this isolation easily growing into paranoia, as you see more and more things to disturb you, like the items left behind or the abandoned car, with also the spaces you go to having a really liminal quality to it, like they aren't meant to exist and you've stumbled upon a place you're not supposed to be, and eventually entering the butcher's house where you really aren't supposed to be. So is that just the whole game then? Being homestuck here, awaiting your demise like the end of Night Watch? Well no, as there's a bent part of the fence of the cage that you can just about bend to get out, and enter the first room of the house, with the room being so creepy, with the walls decaying and everything being so green and worn. You search the room and find a lighter which you'll use for most of the game to light your way through, as you then find a closet that takes you into one of the other rooms, where you crouch out of fear, not wanting the butcher to hear you, as you search the drawers, finding a news report about the butcher, or his other pseudonym, the Night Shift Abductor, where it talks about how he kidnapped someone working a night shift, where you realise it's talking about the events of Night Shift, as it then describes the butcher as a large-built adult male who's really tall, with this making you even more intimidated by him. You explore the room more, being careful not to make too much noise, where there's also a creepy-looking mummified corpse, with all of this giving you an insight into the twisted mind of the butcher, and how he revels in being a desired mystery among the public, taking twisted pleasure in the news reports by keeping them as trophies. Now from here you enter the game for real, as you look through more of the rooms, with you needing to be careful with every step or creak of the door as to not alert the butcher of your presence, and the more you progress the more that feeling of dread grows, with this being similar to Power Drill Massacre, where most of the fear comes from the unknown, that lack of knowledge in what could be lurking behind every corner, how big the house is, the true extent of the threat you're up against, with this being slowly revealed to you throughout the game. But for now, the fear of the unknown is used to make this opening extremely scary, as you nervously scramble to figure out how to survive. Now the gameplay of Stay Out of the House mainly revolves around solving puzzles similar to Murder House, but where it differs is in the added complexity and the variety of items you have and the increased threat of what you're up against. In Murder House, most items only act as a linear way to get from one point to the other, like how the magnet is only used to get a key which opens one door and then you never use those again, whilst this game differs from this, as there's still the linear system where there's one item you use once, but you also have a recurring group of tools that you need, like the screwdriver, wire cutters, lighter and hammer to name a few, which are all used throughout to grant you access to new areas. The map is also far more complex than Murder House, with it all connecting to each other like maps in a Metroidvania game, where the more items you get, the more ways you can unlock to better traverse the house, but it also means more chances to run into the butcher whilst exploring this creepy house. Another great aspect of the gameplay is how the butcher never despawns. You are constantly aware of his presence throughout the house, whether by you hearing him or him hearing you. And this looming threat lays the game with even more dread and paranoia, knowing that he could be anywhere. After getting the screwdriver, you use it to unlock the vents, a place of some relief as long as he doesn't see you as you crawl through with the sound of grotesque hits playing, as you near closer and closer until then... You see the butcher chopping up a body in his kitchen, with the rest of the room being filled with blood and flesh and the same religious program being played on the TV, with this making you extremely terrified, knowing that if you're not too careful then this could be your fate too. With the fact that the whole environment of this game is littered with human bodies makes it even more disturbing, from the mummified statues, to the human skin lamps or even the piles of flesh and other disturbing furniture, letting you know that you're by far not his first victim, and most definitely not his last, with this making you even more terrified of him due to how experienced he is with this, To him you're nothing more than another body to fashion into some twisted decoration, or chop up to eat, and upon realising this, the rest of the game is so much more petrifying. The game also uses the same save system as Murder House, where you can only save using a limited number of VHS tapes in a specific room in the vents. Eventually though, you drop down out of the vents and explore more of the house, with this feeling so terrifying as you're exposed, and so you try to move quickly and quietly so as not to alert the butcher, as being out in the open poses a huge risk. Each door you open or drawer you check is layered with the idea that it could be the thing to alert him and cause your demise. After getting the hammer and breaking into a boarded up room, you find a revolver and a note from presumably the dead body right next to you.
He's got me pinned down in here. He waited until I was out of bullets and nailed the door shut. He's been killing us one by one, keeping us in the cages outside, waiting until we're weak, then coming like an executioner to finish us off. He's got superhuman strength. I just barely got away.
Before then informing you of where the butcher keeps the wire cutters and to use rubbing alcohol to burn open the cabinet doors to it. This note is extremely disturbing and links back to what I was saying earlier about the ruthlessness and cruelty of the butcher, and how learning about it only terrifies you more as you learn of his numerous victims and horrific treatment of them. After this you explore the room more, finding a boarded up hatch which takes you into the attic. Another thing that makes this game so scary is the sound design. If you're a pussy like me, you probably also lower the volume playing horror games, or at the very least take your headphones off one of your ears or even both of them when things get really creepy. Yet with this game you can't. You need to hear how loud you're being so as not to alert the butcher, and you also need to hear out for his footsteps to know if he's approaching, or hearing the sound of him chopping up flesh so you know that he's in the kitchen. Yet the sound design is so eerie, with most of the game being quiet, making those moments of loudness hit so much harder, with it being similar to how in real life everything seems so much louder at night due to everything else being quiet, with this adding so much more tension to the game. You find a tutorial teaching you how to use your gun, as you then go further, making it into a creepy storage room filled with tons of water and unappetizing food that leads back into one of the bedrooms. You enter and find a note teaching you how to use a lockpick, and then looking through it more, finding bullets and paper clips and some drain cleaner. However, upon opening the door to this room, everything goes blurry as you hear Roxanne's heartbeat as she says about her head, with the throbbing driving her crazy as you realise that she's sick, something that only worsens over the course of the game. After this, you basically unlocked every door on the second floor, allowing you easy traversal over this part of the house, with it all connecting to each other like the Metroidvania maps I talked about earlier. And after cleaning out the drain, you hear the footsteps of the butcher as you nervously hide, hoping he doesn't come in. Yet he doesn't, and you tensely descend all the way to the basement, with this being so terrifying as you know he's in the kitchen just nearby, as if he decides to walk out or hears you, then you're a goner. Anyway, you then get the hex key, and go down a nerve-wracking chain of events where throughout you hear the movements of the butcher either walking around or opening doors, making you fear for if he finds you. Anyway, this results in you needing to enter the kitchen. You know, the same one he spent the last hour dismembering bodies in? This moment is so tense and terrifying as if he comes back in then there's nowhere to hide. And so again you have to be quick and quiet or else you'll become his lunch or his next lamb. Anyway, you get the wire cutters, do a little snip over here, and boom, the vent fan's deactivated, allowing you access to one of the most twisted and disturbing parts of this game. You hear Brendan waking up, seeing it as a joke, before then becoming increasingly more disturbed. Eventually pleading for his life before then insulting the butcher, as you progress further through the vents where then you watch in horror as you see the blood still spewing out, with this being just so horrifying. How he ruthlessly kills Brendan with the blood everywhere and the fact he's got no clothes being extremely disturbing. And from the deranged screams of the butcher it gives you even more of an insight into the psychotic mind and nature of this brutal butcher, with the scream seeming almost like an animal, inhuman yet so terrifying and piercing. And this combined with the furniture and disturbing imagery you see throughout the game adds to the horror, as by PuppetCombo exploring the psyche of the serial killer, it makes it far more terrifying as the more you learn about him the more terrifying he becomes. After watching your boyfriend go headless, you drop down to the hallway, which instantly triggers the butcher as you then hide with him not finding you. You then enter the next room. Things go blurry and the VHS static returns, as you realise Roxanne is getting sicker, and that the butcher is only drawing in closer. You see, one of the most frightening parts of this game is that when you're in close proximity to the butcher your screen begins to distort, with a grainy VHS line appearing across it, as the reality itself is disgusted and falling apart at the cruel and monstrous nature of the butcher, and makes your run-ins with him far more intense, as his influence distorts everything around him. Your goal in this room is to gather multiple different body parts from around the bottom floor of the house, going through grotesque and creepy places places as you then enter the garage and see a van. The exact same van that stalked you in Night Shift, with you then smashing the windows of it to get the other body parts needed. Yet it alerts the butcher, causing you to hide before you then place them on the scale. After gathering all of the parts and placing them, you get a gear, which you then place into a clock, which opens a door in the wall. Look man, just go with it. Which takes you into a hidden tunnel going all the way to the top of the house, and from here things only get darker. This hidden tunnel can also lead back into the main area of the house, and so when playing I explored the opening area again to see if I missed something, but then the grandma screams, causing the butcher to come running up the stairs to help her, with this moment being so terrifying as the grandma is a great source of horror throughout this game, as when she screams it causes the butcher to come running, and worst of all, later on in the game she can move around the house, making it so you have to be even more careful as to not run into her or the butcher, and adds to that sense of dread when you roam the house out in the open. After this you go back up to the attic, cross a pit of barbed wire and enter the creepiest part of the game, taking you to a series of horrifying rooms, one filled with a flesh lamp and mummified body wrapped in religious paper, before then entering another room, seeing piles and piles of bones and skulls, and then on the walls you see a ritual sculpture made out of the bones of his victims, with flies swarming around it making it feel so disgusting and horrific. These corpses being stretched and fashioned in such a grotesque way, and even though the graphics are simple it invokes such a deep sense of disgust, as you learn the true twisted sickness of the butcher, but this only gets worse as you enter his backyard. It's dark but you can make out two structures and a large shed, with the house and its red ominous windows looming over you, as you then approach one of the structures, finding a series of cages with people still alive in them until suddenly you see the butcher enter the backyard. You try to stay out of sight the best you can until then you hear the tortured screams of one of his prisoners, as you realise that these are the people who are trapped waiting to be slaughtered by him. After looting the shed for all it's worth, you head back out to the jails. How'd he not see me? Anyway, you open one of the jails and talk to the prisoner where she thanks you, where you then try to guide her to follow you. But here you're met with one of the most disturbing choices I've ever had to make in any game. You see, the butcher likes to be in the kitchen. You can hear the squelches of the body he cuts up, and if you want to leave the backyard, the only way back into the house is through the kitchen, with the surroundings being blocked off by fences or his dog. So how could you distract the butcher enough so he would leave the house so you could safely go back inside? And that is sacrificing the prisoner. You listen in horror, realising what you've been driven to do just to survive, as you hear the screams of the prisoner and manic screeches of the butcher, as you run past him killing her as you find your way back into the kitchen and the house as a whole. What makes this moment so terrifying is that it's the culmination of everything the game has been building up. The dread of not knowing if the butcher will find you, the disgust you feel for his cruelty and his actions, and the desperate measures you have to undertake to survive. But the most disturbing part is how it gives you that option to sacrifice the prisoner or not. By being in this horrific place you're driven to the extreme just to survive, and the only thing just as disturbing as the butcher is the lengths you'll go to escape, with this moment leaving me in shock and made me think about it and my choices for long after the game was over. After this you re-enter the house, the manic and crazed screams of the butcher echoing in from the backyard as you make it back up to the attic. From here you're really close to escaping the house, and after completing a few final steps, which I definitely didn't look up in the tutorial, you nervously descend back to the kitchen, avoiding the butcher and the grandma and using the can opener to open a can, giving you the key to the door of the house. Anxiety building as you give one last dash to the exit, terrified the butcher will get you at the last moment before freedom as you exit the house. It's now late at night, or early morning. Either way, the sky is blood red as you breathe a tormented sigh of relief, as you realise it's not over yet. There's a really ominous feeling you get playing through this part feeling so liminal and scary as whilst you might be free, you've opened up a world of fear you haven't before. Your boyfriend dead, the truth of the religion in this town and the murders of the butcher and the extent of his depravity. Sure, you might be free, but can you still go on after everything you've been through? Now, the religious references is something I could go into a lot of detail on, but I don't really have time for it. But from the opening of the game, you learn that the church transformed into a dangerous cult, of which the butcher seems to be an avid follower of from the TVs and the religious mummifications. But that's all I'll say for this video. You wander through the worn down and abandoned farmhouses, searching for a way out with the red haze following you to each room, before you then jump out of an empty window frame and reaching a small dirt path where you follow until the butcher begins chasing you with a chainsaw as you run terrified down the winding country roads, his manic scream still heard in the background as fear consumes you, as you eventually emerge from the bushes to see a trailer park. Desperate for safety from the monster, you run through it, but it's empty, with the sound of the butcher getting closer and closer until Everything goes silent as he disappears, with there being a trailer with its lights on which you go to. You knock on the door for help, with it then opening as you see a man. The same exact man that acted strange during night shift. Pure terror consumes you as you realise you're not safe. Roxanne tries to explain to him what happened.
Do you want to come inside?
Her vision goes blurry as she realises something is wrong with her stomach. He asks what's wrong before then.
I'm sick. Help me.
And that is Stay Out of the House. Now there is technically one other ending, but it's basically a whole separate game to this, and this video has gone on long enough already. What makes this ending so terrifying is how well it manages to create a sense of relief, only to disrupt it with the chase of the butcher, and it uses sound so well as this is by far the loudest part of the game, with screams, saws and music all playing whilst the rest of the game there's not much music and barely any ambience, which makes this moment really stick out as something horrifying. Overall though, this game is by far some of PuppetCombo's best work, taking the best aspects of all of the games that came before and creating a truly amazing experience. And you can really tell how 4 years of work went into this game, due to how each little detail is perfectly crafted to make for an amazing horror experience. From the slow, creepy build up to the payoff of being kidnapped by him, to the fear and paranoia you feel while scrambling around the house learning new ways to survive, to then the disturbing disgust you feel when you realise the true extent of the butcher's cruelty, and the sickening lengths you go to just to survive. All of it making for an amazing horror experience. But it all goes back to that original idea all the way in Minotaur and Power Drill Massacre, being trapped with an inhuman and intelligent killer, doing whatever you can to survive, whilst also building upon the slow and quiet atmosphere in Night Shift, and fleshing it out as the tone for the prologue, then using the techniques of creating dread and paranoia we see demonstrated in Night Watch, and using the puzzles in a constantly expanding house like we see in Murder House, all of it culminating in PuppetCombo's magnum opus. In conclusion, by going over 5 of PuppetCombo's best games from across the whole library, we can see the development of an amazing horror style, paying homage to the slasher films and low-poly horror games of old, and bringing them into the modern gaming space with an even more terrifying skill set. Each game PuppetCombo makes is leaps and bounds more impressive than the last, and I truly cannot wait to see what they make next. Through these games you get to see the darkest side of human nature, images and scenes so disturbing they stay in your mind long after the game is over, and true psychological horror that leaves you absolutely terrified to keep going forward. The reason why I love horror games, and especially games like PuppetCombo so much, is because no matter what happens, after each game you grow and learn something new about yourself, what you're capable of when your fight or flight triggers, and pushing yourself deeply outside of your comfort zone into a world of frightening horror, and that's why I love this genre so much. I'm a huge pussy when it comes to horror, especially horror games. I always have been, but I think in some weird way that's why I love them so much, especially when it comes to making video essays on them, because by being so terrified of them, I can easily identify what part of the game makes me so scared, with PuppetCombo's games being some of the scariest games I've had to endure so far, and have really loved every second of it. So my rankings for all of these games would have to be 5, Night Shift as it's too short and uneventful, 4, Power Drill Massacre as whilst it is terrifying, it's quite simple and just lays foundations for future games. Number 3 is Stay Out of the House, as whilst from a production value standpoint, it's incredible. I felt 2 other games resonate with me more, with Night Watch being my second favourite, because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm quite fond of Fire Lookouts, and Murder House is number 1 due to feeling like you're living through a genuine slasher film, and being an amazing and thrilling experience from start to finish. Let me know what you would rank these 5 games, and just quickly, here's my ranking based on overall horror and scariness, not just enjoyment. But from my interview with PuppetCombo, I think there's one line that really stuck out to me and ties together every single game of theirs, as you can see it throughout each one, and that is,
I go by what I find scary, which is being hunted by a maniac.
If you've enjoyed this video, then I've got tons of other horror game video essays just like this one. Like one where I dive into every Fears to Fathom game, a series which is extremely similar to that of PuppetCombo's games. I mean, just look at them. Also, if you could try and hype this video, it would really help me out as it boosts it a lot and would mean so much. I've also got a very special video essay planned for Christmas time related to another PuppetCombo game, so subscribe so you don't miss that. Anyway, thanks for watching.